It's time for another edition of Talk to Me. And now, here's me himself, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Mr. Maynard Eaton.
Hello again, and welcome to Talk to Me. I'm Maynard Eaton, and this show is a weekly conversation with newsmakers and leaders in a variety of professions. Please subscribe to our channel here. Joining me this week is a man who's intimately involved with education. He's not only a parent, but he's also the president of Book, Better Outcomes for Our Kids. Welcome, David Mitchell. David, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Maynard. I appreciate you inviting me to come on to your show. I've had a chance to watch a few, and I think you're doing an awesome job.
Well, speaking of jobs, you're in the education arena. You advocate for public education. What about Maria Costar for not being rehired? We talked to her last week, and she got praise and high marks from the president of the Atlanta School Board. Yet politically, she says she was victimized. What are your thoughts about her? You work with her, Maria Costar. Good job, bad job? Should she still be here?
Well, I think she did the job that was needed to get done. And what I mean by that is, when we left where we were before she joined, we needed someone that actually needed to come in and actually provide the level of leadership, administration, tackle critical issues around education. Obviously, making sure we had the right, staff, making sure that we had the right programming, we had the right platform to communicate with both parents, teachers, and communities. Coming out of the cheating scandal, we were in a situation where, it was almost like which way is up. I mean, we were at the bottom. I mean, when you're literally running a school system with over 50,000 kids, and you're coming out of a process that had literally turned into a criminal empire, there was really, quite honestly, only one way to go, and that was up. And I think she came in, did a good job, served the role that we needed her to serve in order to try to, stabilize where we were and make a path forward.
What happened, though? Was it politics, or was her time just over?
Well, I think, we are at a place now at APS, in my opinion, that we need a different type of leader. I mean, I think, you've got, different types of leaders for different types of seasons. I think she was good from a turnaround leader. She came in and, like I said before, did some of the things that needed to happen. But I think we need someone that can build, can grow, that can make sure that every community, every area, every parent feels served, whether you're on the north side, south side, east side, west side, that you feel like you have a voice at APS that can hear you, understand you, and going to react to the needs of your community and build a long-term plan for APS. And I think, we were at that point where we needed someone that could kind of envision the job in that way.
Is Dr. Lisa Herring that person, the new superintendent? Is she what's needed now, you think?
I've done a fair amount of research on her. I think she can be that type of leader. I really do. I think she has roots in Atlanta. She's a Spelman grad. She understands, coming from Macon, Georgia. I mean, that's a nap, if I can call it. That's a nap in the car away from Atlanta. So I know she spent a lot of time here. I think coming with, a background in Georgia, understanding and working, in communities that look like Atlanta. Her last place was Birmingham, which in a lot of ways, from a standpoint of the way you look at the ecosystem of Birmingham, the racial components, the size, we're a little bit bigger, but, it's very similar. I think this is a good fit. And I think this is a person who, would be close enough to home, close enough to all the places that you would want your superintendent to be able to say, if this works for everyone, this could be a long-term engagement.
David, you know as much about politics as anybody. Your brother was a former president of the city council. Is politics a major part of education in Atlanta, and particularly being the superintendent?
Well, Maynard, you and I have had conversations and talked about this a lot. There's not much in Atlanta that politics doesn't touch. I mean,
Right.
all the way from, how you get your trash picked up to, how MARTA works to how city of Atlanta talks to Fulton County, talks to DeKalb County, and you imagine it gets all the way down to our schools. So if you can't really negotiate yourself around what I call a very defined political backdrop that goes on in Metro Atlanta, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think you can do any job here, and so there will be some politics that she will have to deal with, and I think if she's ready for that and can handle that, get a good team around her to not let it distract her from the work that she's here to do, which is making sure that every child has an opportunity to reach their highest heights. I think she'll be fine, but you can't get away from politics in Atlanta. I mean, a lot of people call us the city too busy to hate. We can sometimes do a lot of hating here.
What about books? Tell about the politics of better outcomes for our kids. You've been praised in many circles, but others have criticized you, saying you're more interested in charter schools. Is that a misinformation?
Yeah, it's misinformation, and I call it misinformation from a perspective of we're here to have conversations with African American families around. Maybe I'm on. I got seventh graders at home. we're in a position where we're here
Talking
to
about
have
school, right? So
right. We're having school, right? And so we're here to really have conversations with African American parents, and we're unapologetic about that around what their options are. And so anytime you're in a city like Atlanta and you start talking about choice, you start talking about the quality schools movement, we have a very strong union, what I call it, a base for the unions here who are going to take shots at you. But I mean, I've got thick skin. And so you can't play, again, back to our previous point, you can't play in schools and not understand the politics of it. And that
Right.
politics can sometimes have rocks thrown at you. We feel really good about the new marketing that we're doing. If you've seen it, Maynard, which I think you have, we've gone away from a school bus with our marketing to a waiter. And what the waiter is hopefully a way for us to, even from a visual way of looking at books work when you're first exposed to it, to let people know that we are really here to give you options. Whatever you think you want to make us, what we want to be is the person that says there's more than one place on this menu of education that you can go as an African American family in order to feed your child's need for education. And for many cases in our community, we've only had a one size fits all. If you weren't in the public K-12 platform, then you really didn't even really know what your option was. And I say that very passionately, Maynard, because I was one of those parents. Again, we live over in Summerhill, which has been a changing community over the last 18, 19 years, and we're sitting in a community where you can drive 100 yards in either way and find $1 million homes, and you can find some of the worst poverty in Atlanta, literally 100 yards from my house. And so, me looking for an opportunity for my children and finding Atlanta neighborhoods, change my children's trajectory from an educational perspective. And you and I've talked about this before, without knowing about this school that was literally 100 yards from my house, that I was able to find. And my wife was, fortunate enough to be recruited. She was the neighborhood association president for Summerhill. They recruited her to join the board, and my kids were able to join the school at the kindergarten level. That changed my perspective on the conversation we needed to have. And so I've been glad to be a part of this conversation. I've been glad to be able to make sure people like me, working middle, and in some cases upper middle class Blacks know what their options are.
What brought you to this point? What fueled this passion to create this organization called Book? And why is it still needed? I mean, what is it you do that was missing before?
Well, why do I do it? The why is fairly simple. I come from a family of service. I mean, I've done fairly well for me and my family here, but understand something. If you pay tax dollars in this city, you fed me, you got me educated, you put food on my table, you put the roof over my head. As a son of an Atlanta public school teacher and Atlanta Police Department, I say proudly in many cases when I'm in any event, before I give my personal or finish rather my personal origin story, I let somebody know if I get to the conversation around book and what we do with better outcomes for our kids, I tell people that I owe. And when you tell people that you owe, what you're telling them is that it's something about them and their life and their family and their children that you feel indebted to. And so if you're a taxpayer here, you paid my dad's salary, you paid my mom's salary, you paid for our home and helped us grow up in Southwest Atlanta. And so giving back is part of my culture and who I am and built into my DNA. The third piece of that conversation is, again, when you're looking at your kids and you've got twins, many cases, what you find with African-American families that are upper middle class blacks, what they will do immediately when their local public school doesn't work, they just opt to private. And so you and I've talked about this before. Opting for private for the Mitchell family is whatever that private school's annual cost is for that school. You just have to multiply that by 2, and then you have what it costs in my house. And so let's say if we had chose a Woodward or we had chose a St. Pius or something like that. I mean, you literally would have been talking about me paying, some $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year to send my kids to school. And so being able to be exposed to Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School, my wife meeting at the time, one of the leaders on that board who ultimately became an APS board member, allowed us to really be exposed to one of the finest schools in Georgia. They were 2015 Charter School of the Year in Georgia. And so we were blessed. And I felt like once I found this blessing for my kids, I had to close the gap with others like me so that they would know what their options were as well. So it's really a work of passion to making sure people know what their options are.
When you were asked by a fellow parent, is charter schools better than your neighborhood public school, is there a direct answer, or do you say, look and see?
I say, and I even say it even louder now, it's up to you whether it's a better opportunity for your kids. What you need to own and completely drive in your household is what's best for your children. The second piece I normally tell them, Maynard, is that your child's K-12 education will be the most important investment you make in them, period. It will literally shape the rest of their life. And so if you get that wrong, you can't fix that, man. We've talked about that. I mean, how do you get back to 8th grade? You can't get back to 10th grade. You can't get back kindergarten, right? And so making that opportunity the best opportunity for your children, I think, is the greatest thing that you can do for your children. And I think what we're planning to do and continue to do with the work we do at Book is to make sure that you know everything that's on the menu, everything that works, and then choose what's right for your children. And in many cases, as you get even more mature, your understanding around your options and choices, you may have multiple kids in the house that may end up going to different schools. You'll find in other communities in Atlanta, you'll have kids where one kid will be going to one school and another kid will be going to another school. And that's because the parents have been so engaged in how they learn, they realize we've got different options. John learns like this. Jane learns like this. They can't learn the way they can be the greatest that they can be in the same school. I can tell you that the African-American community has not gotten that mature with the conversation, and Book wants to help them get there.
You talked about losing their education. Because of this pandemic, aren't Atlanta school students losing out now? Can they ever recover from this? What do you see for your children moving forward now that they've been learning from home?
I tell you, Maynard, that's my greatest fear. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think the learning gap that we're going to experience from COVID-19 is going to be as catastrophic as we are going to see in the economic spaces that I work in and provide advice into as a finance professional. It is going to be something that I think is going to stay with us for some time. And let me tell you why. Atlanta public schools and most public schools, not to throw rocks at APS, have never been set up to learn from home.
Yeah.
And so literally you had a model that really required them to bring kids together at a school in a room with, in some cases, somewhere between 25 and 32 kids, and get them educated. You took that platform and you sent it home. And so when you sit at home, you had to scramble as an administration, as leadership, as scholars, and as teachers, to be able to provide your learning model to a kid over a laptop or a Chromebook. And it's something that we haven't not been trained to do. And I think if you didn't come from a family already, Maynard, that had really engaged parents, had a support system, a mom, grandma, aunt that could step into the house and say, I know you're working today, I'm going to sit with the kids today. I think we're going to come out of this with some gaps in education that are going to be astounding.
Will schools reopen in September? Will you be sending your daughters back to public schools or charter school?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I've got concerns about that. And let me tell you why. I am the father, my oldest, who went to public schools and went on to Spelman, got her graduate degree in San Francisco. I'm so proud of her. She has asthma. And a lifelong asthmatic. She still deals with asthma right now. Think about it like this. So let's get away from the whole conversations around should they go, would they go, may they go. What you got to realize is that you're going to have a situation where some kids are just medically are not going to be able to go. And so if you got a kid that's asthmatic and they're having to go back to a school where they don't know how the children next to them are being managed at home, how they're living, how they're being handling this dreaded virus, you literally could be sending your kids to school to die. And so I think from a perspective of how parents are already nervous when everything is going right, Maynard, you don't need to add one more layer over this conversation as far as their health. That's going to make them say, hold up. Let me make sure what APS has done, what Fulton County has done, what Clayton County has done, what Cobb County has done, and other metro schools to make sure my child is safe. Because if the other children in the room are not being raised and their health is not being taken care of, like I am taking care of my children's health, I literally could have a kid coming back into the house with COVID-19. And so I think you're going to have parents that are going to be looking at home platforms. Matter of fact, again, if you let me at book talk about what I believe, what makes us great, we're going to start talking about it. I've actually teamed up with an organization that is an expert in online learning, and they are going to be doing some work with us to talk about the online learning kind of engagement from a K-12 perspective. Something that
so your role is expanding. So book is changing. Book is expanding.
Book is expanding because I think we've got to change with the time. And so, a conversation about a K-12 education platform that's virtual would have been something that would have been cool. Have the conversation, let people know about it. Now it's about to be something central that we're going to be talking about. And you'll hear more about it too as well, Maynard.
You've produced a video, and I'm working on a story in this regard called The Struggle is Real. Explain that, please. And has the struggle gotten worse now?
Matter of fact, Maynard, I think you may have titled the follow-up part two to The Struggle is Real. And I think I'm going to steal this from you. So let me ask my permission now, because I think the next video is going to be The Struggle Got Worse. And let me tell you what The Struggle is Real was about. It's about African-American parents dealing with a conversation around what it takes to get their child educated. The educational gap that they personally have to go through to understand the different platforms that are available to them, the opportunities to then have access to all of these different types of models in order to make sure that you do what we've already mentioned before, what you providing the most important programming that your child is going to get as a parent, which is their K-12 experience. I think in my mind, after COVID-19, I think it's going to get tougher because now you're going to add that layer on top of your already, I call it a panicked feeling around making sure that they get what they need. And now you got to add this health crisis on top of a potential education crisis there are going to be a lot of parents that are going to be, having some sleepless nights.
You had some major voices, some major players in politics and education who were featured in That Struggle is Real. Could you name us a few of them?
I think a couple of folks that I think people will know is we've had, former board chair Courtney English. We've had, Ron Mayo, who was one of the stalwarts in fighting at the State House in this whole conversation around
Right.
school choice and options. We had Alicia Thomas Morgan, who was one of the first African American women I know of. It could have been more, but I know of that really elevated the conversation at the Gold Dome around education, African American children, and choice. So I had some of these, what I think have been some early stakeholders that joined us on this. We also had, an outstanding school leader for a school called Resurgence. Literally, I met this young lady when only thing she had, man, it was a business card and an idea. And then less than 2 years later, she has one of the finest schools in Georgia, right? And so I think what the struggle is real about was really talking about some of the early work that was done to give us an opportunity as African Americans to not only understand but pursue options for our children and what was going to be best for their educational journey. And so I was proud to have the folks join up. Again, I forgot to mention we had the renowned pastor emeritus of Cascade United Methodist Church, Pastor Walter Kimbrough. We had the current mayor of City of South Fulton, Bill Edwards. So these are folks that believe in me and believe in the work that we're doing and believe that this conversation needs to go on. But I can guarantee you, Maynard, stay tuned. The struggle got worse is coming.
And also, David, because of the struggle got worse, books' role becomes even more important now, does it not?
I think it does, because now, when you start thinking about options, I like for us to be, if I can call us this, even though, we're not funded as well as some of the other folks that are in the space, but I'd like to be like a utility, in that space. Like, when somebody says we need this, we go there. When we need X, we go here. When you want to understand about what your options are as a parent and really get educated and really, I'd say, kind of dive into the deep side of the pool around understand what's going to be best for your pre-K kid, your kindergarten child, and how they make this route through the 12th grade. I want the next thing to come out their mouth is you need to get engaged with better outcomes for our kids, because that's the heart of their work.
David, I couldn't let you go without mentioning that you're a proud Morehouse graduate. Are you concerned about whether Morehouse is going to reopen in September or in August?
I am concerned about Morehouse. I am, I am a news junkie, Maynard. I sit and people call me crazy. I may call myself crazy sometimes, but I sit and watch both regular news and financial news literally all day long. And one of the things that concerns me is, particularly when you talk about a organization like Morehouse, I won't speak to other schools, particularly ones that I didn't go to, but the importance of the Morehouse experience is one that has to happen face to face. It is very, very hard to get the Morehouse experience online. You just can't do it. And I'm just going to be honest with you. And it's, I may have some of my Morehouse buddies that'll say, I saw your thing there. You sound crazy. You're hurting in school. We're going to have to try to do this because there's going to be a lot of kids that are not going to be there. And I'll tell them, I said, guys, it's going to be hard to deliver the model of culture, education, understanding of self, and the most important part I'll close with, Maynard, is the network that you get at Morehouse. You can't get that while you're sitting at home. And so that we've got to figure out a way, either through our fine doctors and scientists in this country to find a vaccine for COVID-19, or a way to rotate kids in the schools and out of school, maybe do some distancing at Morehouse, where you don't have kids, one kid comes in one class and, do some different types of things. But if you're not there interacting with the other brothers, with your sisters at Morehouse, with your brothers and sisters at Clark, you're missing what I believe is the greatest value of that education, and that is the network. And that cannot be done online.
David, thank you so much for this compelling conversation. And the best to you, and of course, the best to Book. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Talk to Me. We'll see you next week.